We're going to look at a Statkey tutorial now. You're encouraged to try this tutorial before watching the video, and only watch the video if you want to check your answers or if you're stuck on something. The instructions should be enough to get you through all of the steps just by reading them. So the first thing we need to do is go to Blackboard so that we can open up Statkey. Recall in Blackboard we have this Statkey link under External Links. That's the one we want right now. And we're working with one quantitative variable, so under Descriptive Statistics and Graphs, go to one quantitative variable. This particular data set is preloaded in the drop-down menu. Sometimes you have to upload a file, but this one is traffic flow timed. I believe. Yes, traffic flow timed is the data set that we want. So first we're going to hover over the dots that appear to be 3 high outliers to see what the values are. Over here we can see 3 values, 138, 138, and 141. We list 138 twice even though it's the same number because it really is through 2 different values. So 138, and 141. Now we'll go to the histogram tab. So there's a dot plot tab, a histogram tab, and a box plot tab. And we're going to describe the shape of the distribution based on what we see there. So we're on the dot plot tab. Hitting the histogram tab gets us this picture here. There's a couple of ways we could describe this. We could mention that over here on the left where we're not looking at the outliers, it actually looks fairly symmetric. So it's either symmetric with 3 high outliers, or we could describe it as being heavily skewed to the right because of those outliers. Either of those gives a reasonable description of what we see here. So either of these ways of describing the distribution is reasonable. We can find the 5-number summary over here under Summary Statistics, minimum, Q1, median, Q3, and maximum. All we need to do is write these values down. So our 5-number summary goes 88, 99, 101, 105.5, and 141, just copying those numbers down. The median is 101, and the inner quartile range, IQR, remember this is Q3 minus Q1, so that's my 105.5 minus my 99, which gets me 6.5. And we can also look up the mean and standard deviation under the summary statistics. Looks like my mean is 105 and my standard deviation is 14.056. With a histogram, you can change the number of bins by using the slider that you see on the screen. Its default is 10 bins, but I can make those fewer or more. And it looks like once we get down to about maybe 4 or 3 bins, it's hard to tell whether you have outliers anymore. So we really do lose some of the detail, even though we'd get some more smoothing of the shape. I'll say around 4, but you could say around 3 bins here that we completely fail to detect outliers anymore. We'll just say about 3 or 4. All right, so we're going to delete those outliers now from the data set. We need to click on the Edit Data button in order to do that. And then just hit the delete key when we have those numbers selected. And I click on Edit Data, and I search through this list, I see my 138, 138, and 141 are all together. I select them and then hit delete, and I'll hit delete one more time to get rid of that space. It's not really necessary. And then hit OK to come back. And we want, again, these summary statistics, so we're not so concerned about the graph. We can just leave it on the dot plot. Now our median is 101, and our mean is 100.143. My standard deviation is 5.36, and I want to take the new Q1 and Q3 to find my IQR. 102 minus 99 looks like it gets me 3. So I have 3 for my IQR, 5.36 for my standard deviation. So let's look back at what this summary information looked like before we took out the outliers. I had a median of 101, and that looks like it's completely unchanged. My IQR was really affected by that because we did take out, there's not a lot of data values in this data set. So the IQR did change a fair amount. Sometimes it won't be very strongly affected by outliers if you happen to have a bigger data set. My median, or my mean rather, went from 105 down to 100, and my standard deviation went from 14 down to 5. So it does look like the mean and standard deviation as measures did change more than the median and IQR did. And that is what you will typically find to be true. So the ones that are more resistant to outliers are the ones that changed less. And that's where I would say the median and the IQR are more resistant. And that's always going to be the case. It makes sense because the mean and the standard deviation have formulas that actually take into account what every single data value is. Whereas the median, all it cares is that half the values are above and half the values are below. Taking out the 3 highest values doesn't affect the median any more than taking out 3 values that are just slightly above center. It would have the exact same effect on where that median falls. It would just shift it a little bit in the other direction, in the lower direction. In this case, it stayed exactly the same. The only reason it stayed exactly the same in this case is because we do have so many values right here around 100. We actually have a repeated value of 101 occurring over and over again. If we click on Edit Data, we can see lots and lots of 101s. So shifting that median over a little bit in the data set made it just hit a different 101. So it's not always true that the median doesn't change at all, but it is true that the median is expected to change less than the mean from removing outliers.